Meeting number 13 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to the orders of reference of March 24th, April 11th, April 20th, and today, May 25th, 2020, the committee is meeting for the purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. The webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you're ready to speak, please click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone to please use the language channel of the language they are speaking. I would now like to thank the witnesses for joining us today. With us today, we have, appearing as individuals, Shamez Kassam, author and financial advisor, Kevin Milligan, professor at the University of British Columbia, and from Fraser Way RV, we have James Epp, president. Mr. Kassam, you're up first with your opening statement. You have 7 minutes and you have the floor.
Good evening. I would like to thank the members of this committee for the opportunity to speak today, and I also thank you for your continued public service during these challenging times. I am a financial advisor based in Calgary and an advocate for financial literacy. With respect to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, I want to thank the government for its quick action to help Canadians impacted by this crisis. I do also have several comments and some suggestions. The rules around the CERB program were initially confusing, and live operators were difficult to reach for many Canadians, which caused more anxiety to these individuals who were already suffering from increased stress. Some groups, such as students, were initially left without any direct assistance. Many Canadians also fell through the cracks. For example, several people I know had their incomes dramatically reduced, but were still earning $1,000 per month and therefore did not qualify for the program, but they did need assistance. The CERB program also created some adverse incentives for workers in lower paying jobs. I have heard several stories of individuals turning down jobs or not returning to work because they would rather remain on the CERB program. Rather than rolling out support programs on a piecemeal basis, a better method would have been to immediately provide every Canadian over the age of 18 and workers under the age of 18 with a benefit of $2,000 per month on a taxable basis. This benefit could then have been clawed back based on income tax filings for the 2020 tax year, similarly to the way that it is done for the old age security program. Many accountants I've spoke to in my local community also expressed strong support for this concept. In addition to this, in my opinion, the government was not adequately prepared with enough PPE for frontline healthcare workers and citizens. This should be strategically stockpiled in the future. Some other missteps were the failure to act quickly on border crossings and ineffective and in some cases absent screening for travelers returning to the country, and also rapidly changing advice on whether civilians should or should not wear masks. I would now like to turn to another area that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed, which is the critical need to enhance the financial literacy of Canadians. While I applaud the work that is being done by the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, FCAC, more needs to be done, and the need is urgent. So many Canadians make significant financial mistakes in many areas, including poor investment choices, taking on too much debt and not and not saving enough. In my opinion, at least 90% of these mistakes could easily be prevented with the right knowledge. And this knowledge should be taught in high schools right across the country. Financial education need not be complicated. If our students can do high school math, they can certainly be successful in managing their finances and investments. Several provinces have taken steps towards teaching financial literacy, and I urge the federal government to work with the provinces to put in place a mandatory financial literacy curriculum for high schools in all provinces. Although educational curriculums may be under provincial jurisdiction, the federal government can help to push this agenda forward. If requested, I would be pleased to assist with this effort. I want to emphasize that if students were armed with a good base of financial knowledge coming out of high school, they would be less likely to make critical financial mistakes. And over the long term, we can improve retirement readiness for the next generation, and this will ease the burden on government resources in the future. Another area that should be reviewed is the financial advisory industry. The standard to become a financial advisor in this country must rise, and drastically so. Today, becoming a licensed financial advisor and providing advice to Canadians requires a high school education and passing 3 multiple choice exams with a 60% passing score on each. While there are many competent financial advisors in the country that do wonderful work, the low barrier to entry also allows natural salespeople to come into the industry and easily obtain required certifications, and Canadians can suffer the consequences in many cases with high fees and poor advice. My frustration with this situation and the lack of a clear roadmap for Canadians seeking financial advice led me to write and publish a book in 2017 entitled Your Money's Worth: The Essential Guide to Financial Advice for Canadians. Today, we are seeing the consequences of poor financial literacy. Many Canadians are without savings and a personal safety net. Too many are on the brink of personal bankruptcy. Even many higher income earning Canadians are on the financial edge. They did not save for a rainy day, and now it is pouring. Many retirees have also suffered deep losses to their portfolios and are afraid of outliving their money. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the issue of financial literacy, and there's much work to be done in this area on an urgent basis. I would like to conclude by informing the committee that for many years, from my early childhood to my mid-30s, I suffered from a severe stuttering disability that significantly impacted the quality of my life. From being unable to say my name, speak on the telephone, being challenged to find employment or order what I wanted at a restaurant. Stuttering is a condition for which there is no cure, and it impacts 1% of Canadians. Thankfully, it can be controlled with appropriate treatment. In Canada, we are fortunate to have the Institute for Stuttering Treatment and Research, known as ISTAR, which is affiliated with the University of Alberta. It is a world-renowned treatment center that has changed thousands of lives around the world. And I would like to recognize and thank Deborah Cully and the late Dr. Einar Bolberg for establishing this institute, as well as all ISTAR staff. Without their help, I would not have been able to appear before this committee. If you come across people who do stutter, please ask them to consider seeking treatment at ISTAR. Thank you.
Chair, you're muted.
Thank you, Ms. Cusey. Thank you very much, Mr. Kassam. Next, we have Mr. Milligan for 7 minutes, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the invitation to appear. My comments today are focused on the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB. The CERB was designed to sustain Canadian families as we put much of the economy on pause. The CERB helped to support millions of Canadian families in the early uneasy weeks of the COVID pandemic. But we are now entering a different part of the pandemic, with work and economic activity beginning to resume in many parts of the country. What we need now is to release the pause on the labor market and let the labor market return to its regular function of matching workers with jobs. The CERB was designed for an emergency, not for regular labor market functioning. For this reason, we must now prepare to end the CERB. I will explain now my views on why, how, and when of ending the CERB. So first, why we should end the CERB. The CERB was designed as a temporary emergency measure, but in the coming months, we need programs that encourage the resumption of work and the search for new job matches. CERB was designed to freeze the economy and not to restart the economy. So how do we do this, though? How do we end the CERB? In my view, the best way to end the CERB is to transition the remaining CERB caseload to the existing employment insurance program. There are two main reasons for this. First, through EI, workers gain access to services like job training and job search assistance. Second, EI has existing and functioning rules for issues like how much you can earn while keeping your benefits. EI has existing rules and a system for handling them. This is much easier than trying to reinvent and paste these kinds of rules into CERB. Now, those transitioning from CERB to EI might, for example, be grandfathered in at the $500 a week benefit level to keep benefits the same under CERB. There are at least three groups that require special considerations, though. First are parents of school-age or preschool kids unable to work because of their children and their childcare. Second, the self-employed and others who are not normally eligible for EI, but were eligible for CERB. And the third group is those unable to work because of health concerns. Now, solutions for all of these groups should be found before we start to wind down the CERB. Now, finally, when should we do this? When should we start to wind down the CERB? The CERB, in my view, should be allowed to run its current 16-week course. Those who took the CERB from mid-March will exhaust their 16 weeks of eligibility in early July. Others who started the CERB later may have different eligibility. I think this transition to EI should begin as soon as possible after this 16-week CERB period is complete. Now, what does as soon as possible mean, though? We know that the existing EI administration was not equipped to handle that initial surge in March. I do not know if we have the administrative capacity to handle this kind of transition in July. It may require more planning, more computers, more administrators. Maybe these preparations will take place in August. Maybe they'll take place and be ready in September. I don't know. But what I do know is we should not delay in starting to make those preparations. If the EI administration cannot handle the CERB caseload now, perhaps the CERB might be extended on an interim basis until the transition to EI can be made. The exact timing is less important to me, but what is important is the decision right now we make about the destination. And to me, that destination is clear, that we must prepare to end the CERB, and that should be planned as a transition towards EI. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, you are muted again.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm having a rough night. Okay, thank you, Mr. Milligan. Next, we have Mr. Epp, please, for 7 minutes. You have the floor.
Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for the opportunity. During the last 10 weeks, the RV industry has found dealing with COVID and its restrictions challenging. The rentals division has taken a massive hit. The Canadian RV rentals sector combined contributes over $260 million annually to the economy. Now we hear that there may be no recovery until a vaccine is available, per John Horgan, Premier John Horgan and Dr. Bonnie Henry, and that was May 7th in the Vancouver Sun. This could jeopardize our industry for the next 2 years. So what I say is, what is the government's plan for tourism-focused companies for 2020 and 2021? What are the serious plans to open up the borders, including flights from Europe? Procurement of PPE. Have we plans to fill the shelves for that first worst case scenario? Why the slow response on stopping flights from China in early February? Has a study been done for people following basic protocol, wash hands often and well, using antiseptic when moving from one place to another, 2-meter space, or using a mask when that can't be accomplished, and not touching your face? Being the largest Canadian RV rental company, Fraserway RV has over $100 million in RV rental inventory, half of which will now need to be liquidated. Many small businesses, service providers along the highways of Canada rely on summer tourists for their survival. Some may think that locals may fill the gap. However, overseas tourists average over 3-week rental bookings, plan their holidays 4 to 12 months in advance, and fill campgrounds 7 days a week. Locals mostly travel long weekends, and they contribute only 10% to the rental revenue quoted above. Presently, most campground grounds are shut down, and with provincial parks now putting restrictions on limited capacity and no interprovincial travel, poses challenges for the campgrounds and providers and causes significant drop in their revenues. Rental operating expenses continue 12 months through the year. This is significant and serious, causing a lot of anxiety and concern for many operators that will not be able to survive the long winter coming up. Now, businesses have been innovative in operating and following protocol during this crisis. For example, Fraserway RV had 12 open locations, limited opening locations, and had zero COVID experience, including family circles across hundreds of employees and customers. For this, we're very thankful. Challenges: people isolated at home for long periods of time, individuals who can't pay their bills, and the ones who lost their business or lifetime investments. Many of them will have serious health challenges. And who will pay the taxes as our federal deficit climbs to $250 billion? And as our debt starts to range in the $1 trillion range. I understand every death is a grieving family, but media love to amp up the overall fear of this crisis and need to look at things from a broader picture, including celebrating our successes and how the majority is committed to the new protocol. Most provinces have leveled the curve, and how important it is to open the economy safely while following that protocol. Most decisions are being made by individuals who do not have the worries about employment or have a regular salary through government payroll, health institutions, or consultancy. This is not to question those at the table, but question those who are underrepresented. Small business contributes a large part to the Canadian economy and is a leading innovator. In 2009, we led the G7 out of the deepest recession since the Great Depression. What are our plans now? Finally, when some political parties start collecting on the wage subsidy program when they don't contribute taxes, this is a conflict of interest. My family journey as an entrepreneur. Over 51 years, there were many times when payroll went out and the family was told no cash, not to cash the checks, which meant minimal spending for a period of time. Other times we spent 50 to 60, 70, 80 hours a week getting another unit ready so a customer could take delivery so we could make payroll. Customer service, banking, purchasing, paying taxes, along with a myriad of other regulations. Through this all, we grew the business and were successful. Today, we have a great team. We pay taxes. We support community. We run a charitable foundation. We will survive this financial crisis, but to ensure that we are there in the future, we will need to cut expenses. How deep will depend on your response. I should say the government response. You're the committee reporting. This experience is nothing new for the upcoming generation of entrepreneurs who have and will pour their lives into their business and are now potentially losing everything. These are the drivers of our future economy. I do agree we need to ensure that we don't have a relapse of the virus, and we want to be cautious. As we move forward, we need to be responsive and multi-pronged. Approach to limit the economic damage and ensure a quick rebound. Given the greater risk of COVID-19, individuals with
Mr. Epp, I'd ask you to try to wrap it up. We're about a minute over time here.
Okay. Given the greater risk from COVID-19, individuals with compromised immune systems and underlying medical conditions, including many elderly people, over 65, myself included, should be prepared to take extra steps of precaution so that the overall economy can operate under normal circumstances following the protocols and that have been put in place for reopening business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Epp. And now we're going to move to rounds of questions, beginning with the Conservatives for 6 minutes. Ms. Cusey, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much to all of our witnesses who are here today. I'll be splitting my time with Mr. Viss. Mr. Kassam, thank you so much for your presence here today. This is actually the first time in knowing you that I'm hearing about your problem with stuttering. So congratulations on overcoming that, and thank you for having the courage to be here today. Recently, our party has put forward two potential solutions in an effort to help, in particular, seniors with their finances during this difficult time. The first is a one-time RRSP withdrawal that would have to be paid back by December 31st, 2023. With this, they could potentially help their own finances, the finances of their family, perhaps if they have a business or want to help the business of a family. We think that this is something that would be useful relative to relying on the government to bring us further into deficit and debt. Our other solution was a no mandatory RIF withdrawal this year. Again, this is a time where portfolios are taking a significant hit. Of course, you know from like myself from following the market, that times of great gain usually follow these times where portfolios have lost so much and seniors have so much to lose. Could I please get your response to these two policy ideas that we've put forward, how they could help the government, and most importantly, how they could help Canadians both in this difficult time and going forward? Thank you.
Thank you for the question and for your kind words. I think any idea where it allows seniors to get better access to their investments is a good one. What we see at the moment is there are many seniors who are being put into a position where their families and adult children need assistance, and so therefore, if some funds can be temporarily taken out of the RSPs, I think that that would be useful. And then there are also some seniors who may not need to take money out of their RSPs and RIFs, and so I think this year for those people not having to take money out would enable them not to have to sell assets at a depressed level. So I like both ideas. And just to share something with the committee, and this goes back to the concept of financial literacy. There are so many Canadians who make the exactly wrong decision at the wrong time in terms of panicking about their investments, and they sell at depressed values, which is very unfortunate, but it happens every market cycle.
Thank you so much. I'll pass my time to Mr. Viss.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, MP Cusi. I'm just going to jump right to it. Two quick questions for Mr. Epp. How has COVID-19 impacted our local labor market in the Fraser Valley region? And secondly, how, as a small or mid-sized national business, has the emergency wage subsidy responded to your needs during this financial crisis? Thank you.
Let me start with the labor, and thank you for the question. Labor's always been challenging in the Fraser Valley, at least for the last 10 to probably 15 years. So it has always been challenging. However, the crisis has not helped at all. And part of it may have been because of the generosity that came out of the government initially. And some of the offers, even now when we try to bring people back to work, they are getting paid pretty much the same or maybe more in some cases. I don't know all the details on it, but I do know that people are declining to come back to work today because they are on great government programs. And that is challenging us right now. Technicians, from a technical point of view, we always need technicians. There's a shortage of technicians, and somehow, and it could be industry as well as government, but we have not promoted the great job of being a technician. That you'd never be out of work if you're a good technician, because there's never been unemployment in that part of the market, where you're earning starting anywhere from the low 20s up into the high 30s. And sometimes if with incentives, you'd be working overtime or even earning over $40 an hour. So that's a big hit for us now. And because of COVID, we had the big shutdown of business where we stole very little for a very short period of time. And now it seems to be coming back. So it's kind of a lump, we're getting a little bit of a rebound just as people get into spring. I don't know how long that is going to stay, but it feels good right now. But now we can't get the people and fill the pipe to deliver a great service on the product we're delivering. So that is a challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Epp, and thank you, Mr. Viss. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Dong for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I want to thank all the panelists for joining us this evening, or for some parts this afternoon. Thank you very much for your thoughts and suggestions. I would like to go to Professor Milligan. Your presentation was focused on CRB. So I want you to compare the CRB to Universal Direct Payment System, which was suggested to the government some time ago. What's your view on that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Back in the initial stages of the crisis, there was a lot of, I thought very vigorous and productive debate about how to provide income support to Canadians. And two important criteria, I think. One was something we can do quickly, and another one was a program that can replace lost income for people who've lost their job because of the crisis. And there are various different ways you could do that. The one that was chosen was using the CERB, which, as we all know, was delivered fairly efficiently and quickly through the Canada Revenue Agency by early April. Checks were arriving in mailboxes and direct deposits. And it was focused on replacing income. Now, the contrast is to some kinds of system of basic income or a check to everyone kind of approach. And two challenges with that approach would be, number one, it was not actually clear that it would have been any faster because there does not exist any master database that you can just press a button and send a check to everyone. That simply doesn't exist. It would have taken time to build that, and in fact would have been longer than the CERB in order to deliver things. And the second thing is, there are millions of Canadians who lost their jobs, and at the same time, there are 30 million adult Canadians. If you had sent a check to every one of those 30 million adult Canadians, that would have spread the same amount of money very thinly. So instead of sending everyone a smaller check, the idea was to focus resources on those who lost income because of work.
Thank you. I want to move to wage subsidy. As you heard, that there was a CERB first, and then very quickly for the small business and employers, they're going to get subsidy from the government to cover partial wages, 75%. How important do you see the wage subsidy as a tool to help business while we're entering the recovery or reopening of our most of our businesses?
For the initial phase of the crisis, the idea of freezing the economy, of pressing pause so that we could push down the curve and understand a bit more what this virus was doing, I think that was tremendously important. We've seen in almost all provinces, we've had really good success in pushing that down, really close to zero in many provinces. There are a couple of provinces that are still working on their cases, but great progress has been made. And that was in part because we put in place programs that allowed us to pause, fight the virus. Now, as we enter a different phase of the crisis, I think it's important that we understand that we have policy that's appropriate to this phase. And in this phase, we want people that when it is safe in a particular place, in a particular province, when it is safe to get back to work, we need to make sure that our policy supports those decisions. And that's where the wage subsidy comes in. We want firms to start reemploying people so that they will have money and they can spend in their neighborhood shops, and those people have money to spend in their neighborhood shops. And that's how an economy works, is this circle of money that goes from one place to another, from my pocket to yours. We want to kickstart that entire process by getting people back to work. And in my view, that's what the wage subsidy is trying to do.
So in your view, you think the CERB is a much faster way to get money to people's hands who need them, and in your view, it's even faster than a universal basic income model. And can you just confirm that? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's my understanding, that because of the administrative complexities of trying to figure out who to send a check to, it was actually faster to do it the way they did with the CERB than with alternative.
And do you know how much more expensive would it be if we roll with the basic income model?
It totally depends on what kind of model you had in mind. If it were to be a $2,000 check to each adult, well, there's 30 million adults in Canada, that would be $60 billion a month, multiplied by 12 months, and you get into numbers that are astronomical. Now, of course, one could try to tax that at the back end. But that's a lot of giving out money on one end and bringing it back on the other. There's already enough challenges with CERB in trying to do that. I can't imagine trying to recollect $300 or $400 billion that was handed out at the front end at tax time in 2021. So I think the decision that was made with CERB was the right one for the circumstances we faced in March, April, and May. As we get into July and August, and some provinces in June, as we're starting to open up, I think it's appropriate to shift our policy focus towards the wage subsidy.
And if you mentioned clawback, if that were to take place, which portion of our working population will suffer the most, will feel the most pain?
Short answer, please, Professor Milligan.
Sure. As we get into the return to work, the greatest challenge is industries where there simply is going to be a change in reality for those industries, whether it is tourism, whether it is professional sports, whether it is other related industries. And I think we need to develop a longer run strategy to help folks in those industries, because unleashing the economy in June is not going to bring tourists back. It's not going to bring professional sports back in a quick and fast way.
Thank you very much, Professor Milligan. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dong, and thank you, Mr. Milligan. Suite, nous avons Madame.
Next on our list of speakers, Ms. Chabot, for 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair. And good evening to all of the witnesses. Thank you for appearing. Thank you for making yourselves available, and thank you for your presentations. I have a first question, initial question for Mr. Kassam. You talked of the CERB, the student benefit, which are perhaps negative incentives or disincentives to employment, but perhaps $2,000 taxable would have been better. My question then is as follows. In your analysis, you don't speak of any minimum wage or minimum salary. Do you think among the...
A point of order, please.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to hear because both the French and the English are at the same volume. Are they on the right choice for language? I'm hearing, maybe it's just my
Madame Chabot.
Madame Chabot? No, I am on the French channel here. I'm speaking French. I'm in the French channel, as always. So I asked a question on basic wage, minimum salary. You know that at Central Wage, 40 hours a week, that's a little less than $2,000 a month.
No, I'm wondering if I just need to mute original audio. Something new to me, which I don't seem to be able to do. It's fine. Go ahead.
I'm on English as well, and I'm getting the same thing. I'm getting the French and the translation. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if that question was for me, but I had great trouble understanding it. And same translation issue. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kassam. Okay, so over to the IT folks or to the interpretation folks. Is there anything that we can do to resolve this?
Mr. Chair, is the clerk here? I've been told if Madame Chabot can go back to floor and then back to French. Donc, Madame Chabot, si vous pouvez choisir le plancher, le parquet.
Choose floor and French, please, and that'll be better. Madam Chair, I am in fact on the French channel. Well, if you switch back to the floor, then back to French, it might work better.
C'est fait. Je suis...
Okay, I'm back on the French channel. How's that? Madame Chabot. We'll start the clock again. You haven't lost any time, so if you'd like to go ahead with your questions, now's the time. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, in fact, addressed to Mr. Kassam. I wanted to have your opinion, your perspective, based on what you've said, that the CERB and the student benefit were a negative or a disincentive to employment. It would have been preferable to offer a $2,000 benefit which was taxable. So I'm asking the following question. The federal minimum wage, should it be higher in order to allow better benefits for all?
Much better. So thank you for the IT folks as well. The question of minimum wage, of course, has many sides to it. I think in this particular case, it may have made some difference. A higher minimum wage, I think, at the margin would have made some difference. How much, I do not know. I'm not an expert on that subject matter. I have through our community, I have in speaking with several accountants and other business people, I did hear instances where they had trouble finding workers for the summer because of this reason. So that's what my comments were focusing on. I hope that helps somewhat.
Merci.
Yes, well, it's a comment we also hear. We're looking for incentives to employment. And with the CERB and the student supplement, if you're getting over $1,000, well, you don't have any sense of urgency anymore, and perhaps the enthusiasm for looking for a job is less. But it's just a little bit better than the minimum wage in the provinces. Perhaps we should be looking more closely at what we actually pay workers. My second question bears with financial literacy, and I believe that is a provincial jurisdictional issue. There's a lot of financial literacy curriculum being offered in the Quebec high schools and schools, and I hope it stays as a provincial jurisdiction. And that was my observation. My next question is for Mr. Milligan. Mr. Milligan, you spoke of a transition between CERB and employment insurance, some kind of linkage. The employment insurance, if we had to depend only on that, there are a lot of out-of-work workers who would have been entitled to nothing, zero, because it has a waiting period, and it's not totally inclusive to cover all workers who find themselves out of work. So when do we go from one to the other? How do we wean off CERB and into just to employment insurance, the standard employment insurance benefits? Thank you for the question.
To answer in English. So my view is that for the people who have lost work, especially the self-employed, the part-time worker who might not have eligibility for this normal EI, for those workers and all workers, as we move forward into the phase of the crisis where we are looking at returning to work, it is important for all of those workers to have access to the regular services of Service Canada through EI. That is for job search, that is for retraining, and that is for other forms of assistance that can be had through the regular EI. In particular, I would note that the question that the honorable member had about the $1,000 limit, this is precisely, I think, the kind of thing that gets very complicated when we try to extend CERB, for a long time period. These kinds of rules, like the $1,000 limit for earned income, become very complicated as we go forward. To my mind, it's better to take the existing set of rules that we have for employment insurance and to transition people into that system so they'll have access to the services and also a set of rules that are well laid out and an administration that is set up to handle them.
Thank you very much, Professor Milligan. Merci, Madame Chabot.
Do I still have time? No? No, your time is 6 minutes. Thank you.
Normally listen on the floor so that I don't have interpretation, but because of what's been going on, I chose to try to listen to the interpretation in both directions, and there's something definitely wrong with the interpretation from French into English. When I'm listening to the English, the sound of the person speaking English is almost not there, and you hear the French interpreter. When I'm listening to Madame Chabot, I hear Madame Chabot speaking French as loud as the interpreter is speaking English, and they haven't lowered the volume on the French speaker. You're not, so people are not able to hear the translation of French into English the way they can hear English into French.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Housefather. During that exchange, I did receive a note from the clerk, and the IT folks are going to be on the phone with Madame Chabot very shortly to see if they can regulate that problem. But thank you for raising it, and we're doing our best. And if we need to suspend to make sure everyone's treated fairly, we will. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Kwan for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for coming to our committee today. My first question is to Mr. Kassam. Mr. Kassam, you made a comment about the importance of CERB, and in your comments, you also touched on your preference, which is a direct payment, a universal direct payment. I, like you, actually support that system because I think actually that would have been the simplest in providing support quickly to Canadians who need help. With that being said, the government came in with the CERB program. It is a much more complex program, one to which we continue to find people falling through the gaps. One example that I highlighted at this committee and elsewhere are, in fact, for single parents, many of whom are women, and they don't qualify to receive the CERB because their income is spousal maintenance and child maintenance, and that is not deemed to be income under the definition of CERB. And to this day, in spite of the government's acknowledgement of the issue, and the Minister for ESDC, Minister Qualtrough, came before us and voiced her concerns about this gap, nothing has been done. And so we're still struggling with that for many of the single parents that are out there. Likewise, we have a situation where people with disability, seniors also were not eligible for CERB. The government did come in with a one-time support for seniors, and we're waiting for, I hope, quick progress and an announcement with respect to support for people with disabilities. So with that as a backdrop, Mr. Kassam, as we're now also talking about re-entry into the workforce, one of the key issues that is emerging is the lack of sick leave for individuals. I know that constituents of mine had to quit their job prior to the height of the COVID-19 situation because they were expected to show up at work even though they were exhibiting flu-like symptoms, and they were in such a conundrum that they didn't know what to do, and at the end they felt that they had to resign their position. So Mr. Kassam, I wonder whether or not you can comment about this situation in terms of the return to work, and as we transition into hopefully the economy again, the importance of sick leave for every single worker across the country.
Thank you for the question. I do personally believe sick leave is important, especially as we do transition into reopening the economy, because and I'm just talking from my own experience here, but even as a as a business owner as well, like I co-own our financial planning practice with two other individuals, and we were just speaking of transitioning sort of our staff and ourselves back to work. And before, people would come back, or people would come to work if they were mildly ill. And I've done that myself, where I had a cold or a sore throat or something, and I should have been at home, but I pumped a bunch of Tylenol flus, and I did come to work. And I think in this new situation, if people are finding any symptoms whatsoever, even mild, to be cautious. They should be staying at home, and so therefore I do believe from a practical perspective, the sick leave is important for every worker, and of course this has to be balanced with the financial responsibilities put on employers. I can tell you in Calgary, business owners are being squeezed in every possible direction, even before this COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, thank you very much for that. I do hope, and the commitment was made today from the Prime Minister about the 10-day sick leave. That was something that I know our leader, Jagmeet Singh, had pushed very hard for, and I hope that will come into play, because I think that is absolutely essential for all workers across the country. With that being said, the other piece that I'm wondering about, Mr. Kassam, is this: as a business owner, one of the issues that I know people have raised with me, and I know many others have as well, is the commercial rent subsidy. Many people are not able to access the commercial rent subsidy because it's the landlord who has to make the application as opposed to the small business person. And the other criteria related to that is that the landlord has to have a mortgage in order to apply. I have so many small businesses in my community who cannot access the commercial rent subsidy, and they're in a dire situation. It is in nobody's interest, I think, for the government to step in to help these small businesses survive the pandemic, and of course, not only just for those businesses, but I think also for the road to recovery as well for the country. So I'm wondering whether or not, as a small business person, if you have any comments with respect to the commercial rent subsidy. Should the government change the program so that small businesses themselves can make application, and should it not be tied to a mortgage?
Ms. Kwan, I am very sorry, but you are well past your time. Mr. Kassam, you are more than welcome to provide the committee with a written answer by way of follow-up, and I am sorry about that. And next, we're going to go to Mr. Albus for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses here today. I'm going to start with Mr. App. Mr. App, can you just quickly go over, in regards to your own business, how is the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy? Are you utilizing this? Is Mr. App still with us, Mr. Chair?
There we go. Mr. Epp, you have the floor.
Thank you. We do not qualify for the first month. We are qualifying for month 2. That subsidy is challenging in some ways because it's such a broad base. concerns are where, for instance, we are now liquidating inventory, which is going to drive our sales. So we're going to sell
Okay,
into
Mr. Epp, I'm going to get you to stop for a minute. If everyone's sound quality is as bad as what's coming through mine, there's we clearly have a technical issue.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can make a suggestion, maybe Mr. Epp can write into the committee his experience on the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. I don't want to waste time trying as we're getting near the end of the session.
Fair enough, Mr. Albus. Thank you.
Thank you. And just I'll go to Professor Milligan. Professor Milligan, thank you very much for being here today. I certainly appreciate seeing you and Ken Bosenkool and other economists discussing various proposals. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there. In regards to the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, Professor, why do you think the wage subsidy is being so underutilized?
Yeah, I think the contention is right that the uptake of the wage subsidy has been lower than most people expected to see. I think the main reason is that it was slower to get into place, and many businesses had to make a decision of how to lay off their workers. And instead of laying them off through a furlough through the wage subsidy, they laid them off onto CERB. And that's great that we had both things there, that CERB was able to act as a life preserver for so many Canadian families. And so that's the way things went in March and April and May. Where we are now, I think looking forward, the wage subsidy, I think looking forward, is a really important tool as we restart the economy. So whatever the mix between CERB and Q in the wage subsidy was in the past few months, I think looking forward, we should be putting our focus on getting people back to work and the Qs.
So respecting that we want to look at the future, will the uptick though in the CERB usage and lack of use of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy mean a slower recovery and much more money spent on the CERB?
I think, it's hard to predict the future, especially in this crisis. What I do hope to see is over the summer, as businesses here in BC and in other places start to hire back their workers, that we will see that caseload on the emergency benefit going down and more workers on the wage subsidy. I am seeing businesses open up around me here in Burnaby, and I'm happy to see that. And I do hope that we will start to see people maintain their income, but doing it through the wage subsidy rather than the emergency response benefit, because the wage subsidy is a way to rebuild the economy.
So what percentage of the economy do you think is possible to allow to return while still ensuring health protections, as we know some sectors and businesses will be closed for a while still?
I can't hazard a guess of what percentage, but I do know that, the kind of freeze that we have seen the economy been in March and April and May, there are clear signs that we are coming out of it in the labor market, in other kinds of indicators of economic activity. And so I am hopeful that we will start to make that recovery in the data that come out in the next few weeks.
Mr. Chair, how much time do I have?
1 minute.
Okay, I'll try to get this through. Professor Milligan, you've said that for a program like the CERB to be made permanent would require making the GST 27%. Clearly, that's just not realistic. Do you agree that the CERB must be scaled down as soon as possible without hurting Canadians who need their support?
I think that we need to start planning for a transition out of the emergency response benefit. And Mr. Albas is right that if you were to make a program like CERB permanent, that costs us about $15 billion a month. That would be $180 billion a year. So the idea of making this a permanent feature of our economy is simply something that is not something we can sustain. So for that reason, that's one of the reasons that we want to start planning a transition out of CERB. And I think that we ought to start that planning now, because as we know, the administration of these benefits is a very difficult thing, and to get the details right and to make sure that all Canadians are supported, we want to start that planning now.
Thank you, Mr. Milligan. Thank you, Mr. Albus. Mr. Vaughan, please, for 5 minutes.
I'll pick up on that, Professor Milligan. So Guy Caron, who is a former member of Parliament and a candidate who talked a lot about basic income, he estimated that to provide $2,000 to every single Canadian for a year would cost well over $500 billion. Do you support that calculation?
The numbers can get very large like that. It depends on the particular amounts, but $2,000 a month times 30 million adults is $60 billion a month times 12, you get numbers that are very big like that. So those numbers get very challenging. There are other ways one can think about delivering these kinds of benefits by phasing them out with income or by targeting them in different ways. But for the universal idea where you give the same check to everyone, it would be very expensive.
So about 60, and to claw that back through the tax system, what percentage would be currently clawed back under the existing tax rates?
Yeah, so the tax rates for many Canadian families are more in the range of, at the federal level, 25 or 30%. So you would get back some of that if you were to pay out these kinds of very large checks to everyone. And you get some of that back through the tax system, that is clear. And you could imagine extra surtaxes in order to pull back those extra benefits at tax time. I just think that, for me, a very important consideration in going the way that the government did with the CERB was the speed of delivery. The fact that there was that CRA website made it so fast.
But just to be clear, if we tax 100% back after earnings of, say, $120,000 a year, that would only claw back about 30-40% of the expenditure. In other words, it would cost us about $40 billion a month to follow Mr. Kassam's advice.
Yeah, it's right that it would cost a lot, even if you were to say set some threshold of 100,000 or 150,000, where you would claw back all of this extra benefit. Most Canadian families don't earn that much, and so you still have a lot of money going out, and that clawback wouldn't actually bring in so much. You'd end up with the kind of bill for this that would make the deficit even bigger than it's going to be.
And just one last question: how many different forms of basic income are there out there?
As many as there are, different economists or people who dream different ways of doing this. There's many different ways, but I think what's important is to look at the bottom line, which is we want to try to reduce poverty. We want to try to support family incomes that have dropped during this crisis. If we keep our eye on those targets, it becomes clearer what the right and appropriate policy will be.
As opposed to dropping money from a helicopter and just give everybody cash and hope we can figure it out in a year's time through the tax system.
I think it is clear that replacing family incomes that were dropped because of the crisis was the right way to go, and it was, a more efficient way of delivering income to families that needed it.
But it's got to end over time.
I think we have to start planning that transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of around basic income, you say that the goal should be reducing poverty. What's the difference when you say that? What component of CERB are you talking about that's different from universal basic income?
Oh, when I'm thinking of different models of universal basic income, what I find interesting is that in some of the models where you do cut a check to everyone, most of the dollars end up going to families who are not in poverty. That's why I think programs that focus first on those in poverty are the ones that are most effective. So for example, the Canada Child Benefit focused most resources on lower income families and middle income families and pulled it back from high income families. It was explicitly not universal, and to my mind, that was its strength. And so that's when we're thinking of these income support policies, I try to keep my mind firmly on what the goal ought to be.
And in terms of the proposal to allow people to withdraw RSPs if they can pay them back in a couple of years, is that not also a policy which would disproportionately benefit affluent seniors with savings? About 40% of Canadians have no RSPs that wouldn't be supported by that program.
Yeah, for that one, that's an idea that's been floated. I think that there's a very narrow slice of people who it would benefit. But at the same time, I don't think it hurts the government's revenues very much because the money does get paid back. If it doesn't get paid back, there'd be a penalty like in the home buyers plan or the other ways of accessing money through the RSP. So I'm actually, attracted to that idea. It certainly is not a broad-based measure, but as one part of a policy package, I think that it does have some merits.
But if you're going to be consistent and target people in low income or in poverty, seniors in poverty, it's not RSPs you'd focus on. It would be a boost to the GIS or boost to OAS. That would be the more effective way to alleviate seniors who are in poverty.
For sure. Yeah, and that is something that we saw in the package that was announced for seniors is boost to low income seniors through the OAS and GIS programs. I think that was appropriate. If you were to add into that something to allow people to access liquidity they have in their RSP, I also think myself that would be appropriate.
Thank you very much, Professor Milligan. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. And thank you to all of the witnesses for being with us today. Thank you for your patience for the technical challenges that we had. Be assured that your presentations today will be of great assistance to the committee in our work. Now we're going to suspend for 3 minutes while we bring in our next panel of witnesses and see if we can get all of the technical issues ironed out on the front end. So we are now suspended. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today. We have with us from the National Association of Federal Retirees, Jean-Guy Soulière, President, and Simon Coakley, Chief Executive Officer. From the National Institute on Aging, Dr. Samir Sinha, Director, Health Policy Research, and Michael Nyson, Executive Director.
And finally, from Réseau FADOC, Gisèle Tassé-Goodman, President, and Denis Prudhomme, Director General, Provincial Secretariat.
Mr. Soulière, you have the floor for your opening statement. You have 7 minutes, sir.
Honorables membres du comité, bonsoir. Tel que mentionné, je suis Jean-Guy Soulière, à titre de président de l'Association nationale des retraités fédérés.
Good evening, honorable members. My name is Jean-Guy Soulière. As president of the National Association of Federal Retirees, I am grateful for the opportunity to assist you in your study of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. With me is Simon Coakley, Chief Executive Officer with Federal Retirees. We will share remarks, and we are both happy to answer any questions you may have. We can answer your questions in French or in English. Federal Retirees is the largest national advocacy organization representing 176,000 active and retired members of the Federal Public Service, the Canadian Armed Forces, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and retired federally appointed judges, their partners, and survivors. For more than 56 years, we have advocated to improve the lives of all Canadians in retirement and to protect our members' earned pensions and benefits. Since COVID-19 began, Federal Retirees has continued to support and advocate for our members and older adults and ensure they have credible, relevant information to help them remain safe, healthy, and connected as we all navigate COVID-19. Canada's response to COVID-19 has set our country apart from its global counterparts, and much of that has been made possible by Canada's public servants. I hope the committee will join me recognizing their contributions. As some of you may know, I was the first chair of the National Seniors Council, a position I held from 2007 to 2013.
A number of issues that we have followed, that's been followed during my mandate at the National Board and during the study of this committee's study in 2018, your report, Advancing Inclusion and Quality of Life for Seniors. The situation we are seeing today are tragically unsurprising. But with that said, I would state again that Canada's federal response to COVID-19 has been strong, substantial. We saw quick action in reducing the amount older adults are required to withdraw on their 2020 RIFs. The GST rebate was increased, and one-time payments under OAS, Old Age Security, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement programs are very welcome, particularly for those eligible for GIS, as by definition they are financially vulnerable and likely to be in the most need. Steps have been taken to protect pensions and pension plan members thanks to a solvency fund relief for 2020, as well as with various requirements for pension protection under the Large Employer Emergency Financing Facility, or the LEAF. There's, of course, room for improvement, for example, in the detail and the communications provided on senior-focused programs. People need clear, accurate information, and they need this quickly. As we continue to respond to COVID-19, attention must be paid in the short term to older adults who are slipping through the cracks. For example, some older adults have lost work opportunities due to COVID-19, and they do not meet the eligibility criteria for the CERB, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, because their employment earnings put them just below the $5,000 threshold. While OAS and GIS one-time payments are relevant and appreciated, they may not meet the financial needs for all seniors. Consideration must be given to further increases to the GIS. Automatic enrollment for GIS in 2021 and a review of implementation of the promised 10% increase to OAS for seniors aged 75 and up. These measures should be implemented as swiftly and focused, targeted to financially vulnerable older adults. As you'll note in our brief, defined benefit pension plans are important to Canada's economy and institutional investors, and to enable Canadians to continue to contribute to the general economy. It represents the most efficient and cost-effective retirement savings option. While some pension plans will be impacted over the coming months, pension plans are built for the long term, and many will eventually recover their losses, with adequate care and discipline, of course, on the part of plan sponsors, and with ongoing government regulation to ensure pension plans continue to be well managed. A strong policy framework to curtail contribution holidays, review ongoing solvency funding requirements of the plans, fixing inefficiencies in defined contribution plans and RSPs are all suggested areas of focus. These are described in more detail in our brief. To ensure the safety of long-term Canadians, it's essential that the federal government focus on thoughtful and intentional planning in cooperation with provincial and territorial cooperation. Now's the time to start planning for the retirement security system we want to have, whether it's in 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years and beyond. I'll now give the floor to Mr. Coakley to make a few remarks on health care for senior care and COVID-19. Thank you.
Opening statement. If you haven't already done so, I would encourage you to submit it in the form of a brief, and let's hope some of the points you wanted to make in your opening statement will come up in the course of questions. Next, we have from the National Institute of Aging. Is it Dr. Sinha? Are you speaking on behalf of the organization?
So Michael Nyson will start, and then I will complete.
Okay, Mr. Nyson, between the two of you, you have 7 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Michael Nyson, Executive Director of the National Institute on Aging, a Ryerson University-based think tank focused on addressing the reality of Canada's aging population. The NIA's mission is to help governments, healthcare systems, the financial sector, businesses, and Canadians themselves to enhance successful aging by conducting research and generating evidence-based policy solutions. I'm joined today by Dr. Samir Sinha, the NIA's Director of Health Policy Research. He's also the Director of Geriatrics at Sinai Health System and University Health Networks in Toronto, as well as the Ontario government's expert advisor on long-term care and seniors since 2012. I'm going to turn over the bulk of our time to Dr. Sinha, but before I do, I want to take one moment to acknowledge the nearly 6,000 older Canadians who have died thus far from COVID-19, as well as their families and caregivers. In acknowledging long-standing issues, there's a growing public discourse on whether the federal government should play a greater role in the provision of long-term care, or whether it should be incorporated into the Canada Health Act, whether or not we should reduce our reliance on private sector delivery of care. These are all questions that we must pose and answer, but they are only a select number of tools by which we could work to improve long-term care across this country. In our view, the substance of our ensuing public discourse and action should focus on the following two core issues. Number one, how could we improve the provision of long-term care for as many Canadians as possible, and to encourage them and allow them to age at home for as long as possible, so that we never experience what COVID has taught us in these past 2 months ever again. Number two, what are the most cost-effective and sustainable ways to deliver the highest possible care?
Mr. Nyson, if I could interrupt for a minute, I just got a note that your speed of speaking is difficult for the interpreters to keep up with. I'll give you an extra 30 seconds if you slow down a bit.
Thank you very much. And number two, what are the most cost-effective and sustainable ways to deliver the highest possible care that are in line with the needs, preferences, and values of older Canadians, their families, and their caregivers? In this, we mustn't be guided by ideology or partisanship, but by the ample evidence that exists and is now emerging across Canada and beyond, from places that have better addressed the long-term care needs of their populations. Furthermore, we must be open to every legislative, regulatory, and policy option available to produce the best outcomes while efficiently using our public resources. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Sinha.
Merci, Michael. While I hold many titles, I want to speak to you first and foremost as one of Canada's only 305 geriatricians that work with older adults and their families challenged by complex health and social care issues like navigating long-term care needs. The aging of Canada's population should be seen as a triumph, as we've extended our life expectancy from 51 years in 1900 to 82 today. When we established Medicare, the average Canadian was only 27 and would not live beyond their 60s. So it's understandable why the provision of long-term care was not an original priority. While other countries acted clearly and decisively to address these shortcomings as they aged, Canada didn't. This inaction cumulatively helped to sow the seeds of the tragedy we have been witnessing, where 81% of Canada's deaths to date from COVID-19 have occurred in long-term care settings, where Canadians have had a 24-fold greater chance of dying from it than if they were living in their own homes in the community. While some thought I was being alarmist on April 2nd when I was quoted in the Globe as saying if my mom was in long-term care, I would pull her out, most Canadians have come to appreciate that our long-term care system was utterly ill-prepared to deal with this pandemic. Our NIA research shows that at least 430,000 Canadians have unmet home care needs, while 40,000 are on wait lists for care homes even before COVID. Of course, People have the right to pay privately for their own services, but this is not an option for the majority of Canadians who do not retire with a workplace pension and only $3,000 on average in the bank. Public long-term care funding has also been inadequate. Its nurses or personal support workers, for example, make far less than they would in our hospitals. And with 80% of homes before the pandemic reporting trouble recruiting and retaining staff, the majority of workers they could recruit were often racialized women who didn't really have many other options. We owe them a debt, and the 10,000 who have contracted COVID and the 9 who have died so far, because they are caring individuals trying to make ends meet who were willing to keep doing this dangerous work. But if we think our usual staffing approaches are the right way to enable a system that we may all need in the future, then we are deluding ourselves. Indeed, to contain costs, most homes employed those workers on a part-time basis without benefits like sick days. So many would work across multiple settings, placing them at increased risk of contracting and spreading COVID. As after SARS, many countries ensured that their homes only offered single rooms, but we still have Canadians receiving care in 2, 3, and even 4-bedded rooms. Altogether, these staffing and physical plan deficiencies have become known as our systemic vulnerabilities that led to the rapid introduction and spread of COVID in and between Canada's homes. During a pandemic, quickly applying definitive actions to prevent the introduction and spread of a novel infection based on rapidly emerging evidence is key. BC gets top marks for implementing key preventative measures well ahead of any other province. They stem their outbreaks to 11% of their homes, while in other provinces like Ontario, close to 30% of its homes have now experienced outbreaks. The NIA issued its evidence-informed Iron Ring guidance on March 27th, which informed your April 8th federal guidance, and yet some provinces still hesitated to act on these recommendations for at least another week. Ontario and Quebec have tried to stabilize their situations with the help of hospitals, the armed forces, and even school board employees, but this has not been seen as a stable solution for a system that has lost the faith of many of its residents, families, and workers that their care needs and safety can actually be ensured. So where do we go from here? Most experts agree that we will be living with COVID-19 for a while. We did better than many other countries in implementing our lockdowns early and allowing us to keep our community dwelling population and elders relatively unscathed. As we anticipate future waves, we need to take the early lessons we have learned and apply them to further protect the 411,000 Canadians who living in our 5,800 long-term care and retirement homes who've not yet been infected or killed by COVID-19. Our provinces and territories need to act more definitively to apply the current evidence-based recommendations. We still have inadequate public health data collection and reporting systems to help us understand how and why COVID-19 is affecting our long-term care settings and what makes them more vulnerable. The NIA thus created an LTC tracker for this purpose. Much of what we need to do has been well known for years and luckily isn't rocket science, but it'll take political will and a federal, provincial, and territorial coordination of efforts. We thus recommend the federal government create a national representative long-term care task force or advisory board with clear deliverables and timelines to provide a thoughtful, evidence-informed approach that will be a resource to provinces and territories in addressing these issues once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sinha.
And finally, we have the Réseau FADOC. I presume that it will be Madame Tessier-Goodman who will be speaking. You have the floor for 7 minutes. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the members of the committee for this invitation. I am Gisèle Tessier-Goudom, president of the Réseau FADOC. Mr. Denis Prudhomme who is our DG, and he will be there to answer questions with me. We are full of concern, although Réseau FADOC has recognized what has been done. There have been slow implementation in this. So we have said to the standing committee, we have made recommendations rather to the standing committee, but these changes have been received rather tepidly by our members. We were told that the markets situation was going to be followed very closely in the hope of introducing other other fixes for the market. But what we do now is we have to encourage decision makers to be able to lower the mandatory minimum withdrawal on RIFs, and also to allow for a pushback on the age for the mandatory conversion of an RRSP into a RIF. Now, there have been things that have been very quick. For example, the one-time special payment for families that have modest or low income. There has been a socio-sanitary crisis, of course, that we all know, and that has had to be dealt with first of all. But the fact that people have been contained in their homes through stay-at-home measures has led to difficulties for many people who had temporary jobs. Our seniors in Canada have had to wait until the 12th of May, to know whether or not there would be any financial aid that would be given to them. And this was a one-time $300 payment for seniors under the OAS, and $200 for those who qualified under the GIS. Many members of our organization have signified that they were very disappointed by this. The Réseau FADOC sees this as a missed opportunity to do something for the most vulnerable in our society. It would have been a good opportunity for the government to follow through on its election promises when it promised to improve the OAS. And again, I must say that an increase in the GIS would have helped as well, because that's been promised for many years. There are many people who have to live with only $18,000 a year, even receiving the OAS and the GIS. As we come out of the crisis, they will be in an even more precarious financial situation. The temporary payment of GIS should be extended, we feel, but there has been no evaluation of that. We also suggest that there should be a grace period that could persist into more normal times. We also turn our minds to the possibility of protecting pensions. Each year, we are told that there are deficiencies in the pensions for retirees. And the result of that is that when the pensions become lower for retirees, for the rest of their lives, they have less to withdraw from the pension funds. And yet they have worked all their lives to put money into their pension fund. And this leads to a great deal of heartache for seniors. The solution, perhaps, would be to amend the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act and also the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act. Recently, the government has put in place a program for large employees that is called the LEEFF in English. And these conditions should be pointed out, and I feel they are very necessary. The beneficiaries of this will be able to respect collective agreements and protect the pension funds of workers. This type of measure should be generally applied, I think, throughout the working world. It's unacceptable that a business that pays out dividends to its shareholders can have deficits, perpetual deficits, and yet give bonuses to the board. We are also concerned about ageism. Seniors are frequently criticized and have been the subjects of ageism since the beginning of the crisis. Workers experience a more difficult access to work. Their rights and liberties are being diminished by this. On May the 20th, the owner of the Olympia in Montreal, Patrick Lévy, said that he thought people of 65 years of age or over should not be allowed into auditoriums or into theaters. This type of statement is intolerable. Our seniors are not a vector to transmit COVID-19. They are the first victims of it. There should be no discrimination towards our seniors in Canada. We hope the Government of Canada will watch over this situation. And finally, as president of the Réseau FADOC, I have a question about health funding. The provinces are underfunded chronically in the area of health delivery services. According to the Conference Board of Canada in 2018-19, the federal health transfer was $38.5 billion, while the total expenditures of the provinces and territories was $174.5 billion. Thus, according to the Conference Board, the rate of growth presently set today will be one that is going to be continued and will continue to fall by 20% in the future. It is extremely important to include in the way in which the Canadian health transfer is calculated that there is a variable that takes into account the aging of the population in provinces and the territories. Our seniors deserve better than that, and the provinces and territories should have what they need to deliver services to seniors. Thank you. Thank you, Madame Tessier-Goodman. And now we will begin questions with our members with the Conservatives. Ms. Cusi, please. You have the floor for 6 minutes.
Je vais utiliser mon temps pour que Monsieur Coakley puisse
I will use my time so that Mr. Coakley can use his time that I give to him afterwards.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me your time, and thank you for permitting me to speak on this important subject. I don't think I should take the 6 minutes. As Monsieur Soulier noted, the consequences we've seen in many healthcare settings, particularly long-term care, are tragically unsurprising to the seniors organizations and advocates who have sounded the alarm on the state of senior care in Canada for some years now. The federal government is to be commended for rapidly answering the province's call for personal protective equipment while also supporting Canadian business and innovation to mobilize that response. The deployment of Canadian Armed Forces members to support long-term care settings was significant and necessary, and development of a long-term care guidelines for provinces and territories was an excellent example of federal leadership in healthcare. We are at a critical moment for healthcare and senior care in Canada. What we do next will define the healthcare and senior care systems that remain for Canadians post-pandemic. Federal Retirees is joining the call for a national review of long-term care in Canada, with a goal of ensuring Canadians in these facilities receive the care and dignity they need and deserve. The review must be public, independent, evidence-based, and informed by older adults, informal caregivers, and of course, subject matter experts. We understand provincial and federal jurisdictions, and our comments will also be taken to provincial and territorial counterparts. Canada's long-term care situation is a national issue. A significant vulnerable proportion of our population has been seriously impacted by systemic failures. Difficult truths like these, once we are aware of them, must be faced head-on, collaboratively and intentionally, with the full participation of all levels of government. Global counterparts like Australia and current Canadian expertise can both form the basis for a Canadian solution. For example, we should be leveraging Veterans Affairs Canada's extensive experience placing and monitoring veterans in long-term care. An instrument like the Canada Health Act for long-term care could serve to ensure national criteria and care standards tied to funding, along with repercussions for failing to meet standards. Home and community care must also be part of the solution. Resource and system shifts are needed to move us away from reliance on long-term care and toward an expansion of home and community care services, which allow Canadians to age in place, are less costly, and generally lead to better health outcomes and quality of life. National criteria and care standards tied to funding may be appropriate here as well. And again, Veterans Affairs experience providing home care support through the Veterans Independence Program could prove invaluable. Informal caregivers are crucial partners in the delivery of care, and COVID-19 has impacted them and how they provide this essential care. Measures put in place because of COVID-19, like physical distancing and restricted access to long-term care and similar facilities, have resulted in some informal caregivers moving family into their homes for the duration of the pandemic. Some people listen to the doctor. This has led to increased stress for caregivers, as well as increased costs, and immediate financial support based on need, similar to other COVID-19 assistance, should be implemented. Informal caregivers need to be able to safely return to long-term care and similar facilities as soon as possible. Their absence has impacted staff, and the stress and emotional toll for residents this has caused, some with capacity issues who cannot understand why familiar faces are no longer around, cannot be underscored enough. The federal government can support the provinces and territories by developing guidelines for the loosening of restrictions and the reintroduction of informal caregivers into long-term care, similar to the interim guidance for long-term care homes released in April. The National Association of Federal Retirees believes the COVID-19 pandemic does not have to be characterized only by tragedy or catastrophe for any part of the Canadian population, and particularly not for older adults, their families, and loved ones. Federal retirees will continue to work with you and with all levels of government to find opportunity in COVID-19. The pandemic made visible the cracks in healthcare and senior care. What happens next is up to all of us. Federal Retirees believes COVID-19 and Canada's recovery from it can be our opportunity to make things right for seniors, for their families, and for all of us who will one day be seniors deserving of security and dignity too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. I have another minute and 20 seconds here. You said in your 2020 budget submission, adequate staffing levels, better training and education, and safe working conditions are needed to improve care. Shortfalls in long-term and home care force seniors to stay in hospitals longer than they need. How has COVID-19 highlighted this issue?
If you're asking me, I think it's probably premature to say with any great degree of certainty, although I mean, entries into long-term care have actually been restricted in many instances over the last little while, and perhaps the doctor would be a better place to speak specifically to that. But I think the whole situation has shown up the cracks, has shown up the challenges. We all knew they were there. COVID has shone a spotlight on what in some ways we already knew, but now we are faced with these realities and we feel it's time to start dealing with them.
Briefly, this committee previously recommended that the ESDC work with provinces to develop certification processes and comparable standards for working conditions for home care and long-term care workers. What do you think this should look like?
I think it would be up to ESDC and the provinces to come up with those standards, informed obviously by healthcare experts. We do not pretend to be healthcare experts, but we would support national standards. We represent seniors from coast to coast to coast, and it's very difficult for us to explain to our members why they might be subject to one level of care in one province and a different level of care in the other. As to what those specific standards would be, as I say, we do not pretend to be healthcare experts. We would leave that to the healthcare and the long-term care expertise.
Thank you, Ms. Cusey, and thank you, Mr. Coakley. And Ms. Cusey, thank you very much for allowing Mr. Coakley to give his opening statement. I felt very badly that we had to cut him off. That was a nice touch. Next, we have Mr. Housefather for 6 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to thank all the witnesses for their work, hard won, to help seniors in our country. I'd like to begin with Mr. Soulière. I greatly appreciated that the federal response was robust and solid, sound. The GST credit rebate was mailed out very quickly, and the OAS and GIS went out quite well. You also noted you'd like to see an increase of 10% in OAS for people of age 75 plus, which has been committed to earlier. The guaranteed income supplement as well for the most vulnerable of our senior citizens. I've been insisting on it for the last 2 years, and I agree with you completely.
Would like to, so I've noted the financial requests, but if I might, I'd like to switch to long-term care and ask questions to all of the groups on long-term care. I note that I agree with both of the groups that spoke about it, that long-term care is an incredible embarrassment to Canada. The number of seniors who have perished, the number of seniors who have been afflicted is awful. And I wanted to ask both of the different, all of the groups, given the issues involved around provincial and federal jurisdiction, and I note, for example, the issue of home care, where we gave $10 billion to the provinces on a previous mandate to improve home care, but we really need to fix long-term care. So would each of the groups recognize that this is in provincial jurisdiction, but understand that support that the federal government now show leadership by working with the provinces and territories to put in national standards for home care? And in particular, I'd like to ask that to FEDOC, which is a group based in Quebec, and given Quebec's unique beliefs about provincial federal jurisdiction, I'd really like to understand if they also would support that. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, peut-être on peut commencer avec.
Perhaps we could start with FEDOC. What is your answer? I will ask Mr. Prudhomme, our Director General, to answer the question. Mr. Prudhomme. Yes, I think if you look at long-term care, there are several things. First of all, yes, we have to work together to establish standards so that the health care that's offered everywhere is the same standard. But it's been a long time that we do know that that isn't the case. Very often in certain areas, it's less efficacious but very costly than home care that can be offered. And something else, if you want to be able to take care of people in dignity, you want to have a possibility of a variable given the aging of the population, and that's not taken into consideration with the Canada Health Transfer right now.
And in Dr. Sinha, you obviously support a federal role here. You understand its provincial jurisdiction. How do we get around that issue?
I'll defer to Dr. Sinha.
Yes, thank you. So I think there's an opportunity here for federal leadership for sure, because I think all of our provinces and territories have been struggling with how to actually balance and provide long-term care. In Canada, we actually stand out internationally because we spend the vast majority of our dollars, our $24 billion a year, on long-term care in terms of nursing home care, 87% versus about 13% in home and community care. But many other OECD countries, and Denmark stands out as a great international example, they spend the majority of their dollars on home and community care. And by doing that, they can actually provide more effective care that doesn't leave people stranded in hospitals and able to actually receive care more in line with what they want and in a more sustainable way. But this is where the federal government can provide leadership. We've just seen how that leadership with guidelines allowed some of the smaller provinces in particular to be able to have that support, or the role of the military to help our two most unstable provinces at the moment better manage their needs. But I think there's opportunities here, as we saw recently with the recent health accord, in terms of helping to boost spending specifically on home care. But we can't think of home care versus nursing home care. We have to think of it as a continuum. And this is where the federal government, in cooperation with the provinces and territories, can help develop a framework, figure out how best to organize it, and support this, because all Canadians are aging, and the tragedies we've been seeing have not been limited to one province or the other. It's something that defines every sector it defines everything that we've seen across the country so far.
Hey, Mr. Chair, do I have any time left?
You have 14 seconds. Thank you very much, Mr. Housefather, and thank you, Dr. Sinha. Suite, nous avons
Madame Chabot now for 6 minutes, please. Is it my turn? Yes, it's your turn. I hope that with the technician that everything is okay now. For the difficulty in hearing the interpretation. Thank you to all of you. You are all very worthy representatives of our seniors and of our retirees. I'm sure everybody would agree that the situation that we are living through now with COVID-19 will not let us lose sight of those very important questions regarding seniors and retirees and funding. The seniors, of course, have to face a difficult double situation. Ms. Goldman, first of all, Madam Goldman, thank you for being here at our committee. I have a question for you with respect to family caregivers. We know that family caregivers have a credit, a federal tax credit. Do you believe that that federal tax credit should be strengthened? Or Mr. Prudhomme, could you answer the question, please? No problem. Thank you. Yes. That's what we do in Quebec as a federal, provincial government. We ask the provincial government to ask the federal to increase and vice versa, because this is a situation that is of great concern for us. Other levels of government have comparable difficulties of this nature. It's very important. Thank you. So it is for caregivers. Well, you have a concern that you raised that FADOC is aware that it deals with that pension difficulties affect both retirees and those who are still in the workforce. We're all talking about COVID-19, but there were many workers who lost their jobs, where there were companies that have had to fold in Quebec recently, or seek or to seek protection, bankruptcy protection. I guess you would also agree with this fact that, first of all, employers that haven't capitalized should capitalize their business before liquidating their business. And secondly, in the case of bankruptcy, that the pension funds should be a priority, should be of first importance, I should say. Yes. Members of the board will get bonuses, whereas the workers are feeling the pinch. People, when they come to the point of taking retirement, they realize that there's not enough money in their pension fund. During the pandemic, people have become increasingly aware of that. I'm thinking of Reitmans and others that were in the media, expressing that difficulties that they were having. We have to look more closely at this legislation and try to correct the shortfalls and the shortcomings. Thank you. There's a temporary measure for the OAS and the GIS. We ask questions about that all the time in the bloc. We want to see a rise in the amount of the two benefits as of 75. We want a permanent continuance of that increase. It's the only way to help people who really need help. We ask questions about this, and we want to know about the temporary measure. When is it going to start? It was announced in March. Are they going to wait until COVID is over before they do anything to help? Have you had any replies about this? Well, not necessarily. In February and also last year, we have addressed the government about the need for it to be involved, to increase by 10% the OAS. But notwithstanding that, whether it's the OAS or the GIS, we know that there are many women that get these benefits for all kinds of reasons, though that there are some who get very little because they just went into the labor market very late in life, and there are other reasons. But we do note that it's often women who suffer the discrepancies. The $729 a year is not temporary. It should not be temporary, but we would like to see permanent aid given to people in this situation. And thank you. Yeah, with respect to RIFs, I understand what you're saying, but do you think it should be on a voluntary basis? Right now, it's age 71 where they have to convert their RSPs. Do you think the age should be pushed back from age 71 to a later age? We think it should be 75. You're saying 75. Yes, 75. There's a shortage of manpower, and we know that there are people who are able to continue working. They make a contribution collectively to society, and they are involved in the community. This has a very positive effect. It counters the feeling of isolation that they can have. And it's very good when they work with younger people. So we feel very strongly that it should be 75 years of age for the age of conversion. Thank you both, ladies, for this. We will now give the floor to Madame Kwan.
Thank you very much. Ms. Kwan, just before you begin, if I could ask all the witnesses in responding to Ms. Kwan's questions to please be sure that you hold your mic so that we get good sound quality. Ms. Kwan, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. I think to begin with on this question with respect to establishing a national standard of care for seniors, does it not make sense for the government to utilize the Canada Health Act to begin that process? I've heard some of the witnesses say that. I like to just to get it clearly on the record from each of the witnesses is is using the Canada Health Act to establish a standard of care, not a good place to start. Let's start with Dr. Sinhar, please.
Sure. I mean, people are looking naturally to the Canada Health Act, but again, the Canada Health Act also is what we use for hospitals and physician coverages. But remember that at every provincial and territorial level, our hospitals, are organized at a provincial level. They're funded in their own ways. And while we have some national accreditation standards through an independent organization, it doesn't necessarily guarantee standardized funding, standardized care in the way we have. What we do have standardized is a higher level of funding for publicly funded hospitals versus the care that's being provided in long-term care homes, hence a lot of the systemic vulnerabilities. So the Canada Health Act could be a tool, but I think we first of all have to say, what is the level of care that we want to be providing? And then we can look at the tools such as the Canada Health Act or other mechanisms that might actually be there that we can employ.
Well, further to that, then, wouldn't the level of funding would be intrinsically tied to that issue as well, then?
Certainly. I mean, if you enshrine long-term care, and I would say long-term care as we define it, the NIA is that whole spectrum of home care and nursing home care. Again, what we did recently in the recent federal transfers was transfer $6 billion over 10 years, in my view, with limited accountability. We just had provinces agree to some general guidelines or metrics that really I haven't seen mostly reported, and I was appointed to many of the committees trying to create those metrics still a few years later. So that was one mechanism. The Canada Health Act could be a mechanism to absolutely guarantee more federal funding, but again, funding without clear guidelines and standards for what we need to do won't get us any further ahead.
Oh, I would absolutely agree. Establishing standards would go with the funding and, of course, the accountability in terms of return. You can't just sort of, not tie all of those pieces together if we hope to get the results. Thank you. I'm going to move on to another witness. Maybe I'll come to you, Ms. Tassie Goodman, if I could ask you the same questions, please.
As you know, health is provincial, is a provincial jurisdiction, and therefore it is a very sensitive area. But if you have 6% transfers for the Canada Health transfer, as we have asked for in the territories, that would be a great help.
Le transfert est seulement de 3%, donc il y a un manque à gagner. Et la population vieillit à un rythme grandissant. Donc, c'est toujours dans le transfert en santé qui est important de s'investir. Je ne sais pas si M. Prudhomme a quelque chose à rajouter.
I'm sorry.
Rapide, en fait, le système de santé,
I'm sorry.
à la base, nous, on demande à ce qu'on soit.
Essentially, we're asking that we reduce this generally. Take a look at what WHO is saying. We should try to orient our system other than what we are doing today. And that means to revise the entire aspect and approach where how we take care of people and be ready to pay what it costs to do it right.
Thank you very much. I think there's no question. Part of the problem that we have suffered as well is that there has been, I think, a reduction in transfer payments to provinces and territories. And that also has, I think, added to the challenges to which we're seeing today. I think, if anything, COVID-19 has really exposed the challenges to which we are faced with today. On the question around a process, it was suggested that we should actually embark on a process to look at what is needed and so on. I wonder, Dr. Sinher, if you have any suggestions in terms of timeline, because one of the things that I worried about is that we'll study these things and then nothing will happen, or is such a prolonged period that is not really going to generate the results that we hope for.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. In terms of a process and timeline, again, I was appointed to the Ministerial Advisory Board on Dementia. That was something set out in legislation with clear targets and guidelines, and we helped establish the National Dementia Strategy last year. And the key is that could be a template, for example, as a way to actually say we need to actually have a clear mandate. We need to have clear goals, because otherwise you could study things forever and then not result in any meaningful actions thereafter. So if we say that this is what the goals need to be, but we need to have federal and provincial cooperation so that we're all actually involving ourselves together to say, what are the endpoints? How are we going to organize this? Do we use the Canada Health Act or other mechanisms with accountability? And how do you bring that back? But I think the immediacy can be helping to figure out what are those types of things like guidelines that help us get through this pandemic, which will be with us for at least the next 18 months. We're going to see more challenges in our long-term care systems, but then also how do we start reorienting our system to more of a system that's more home and community care based, and frankly, more sustainable when we know that our long-term care spending right now, if we do nothing differently, is going to go from $22 billion to $71 billion by 2050. And while we talked about family caregivers before, we know that we're going to have fewer available in future to meet the care needs. And so our current caregivers will actually have to be 40% more productive to kind of maintain the status quo, which isn't sustainable at all. So these are the things. We have the data, we have the knowledge, we've seen what other countries can do. It's just that we need a clear mandate, timelines, and targets, and dedicated funding that can allow that to happen in collaboration with the provinces, territories, and the federal government.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan, and thank you, Dr. Sinha. We have now reached the appointed hour. I want to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all of the witnesses for being with us this evening and for sharing your expertise. It will be of great value as we continue our work. And thank you to all of my colleagues. We will see you again on Thursday evening. Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned.